to Bovine Banter with the Penn State Extension Dairy Team. I'm Lisa Holden, an Associate Professor of Dairy Science at Penn State. Joining us today is Brian Boyer, a Reproductive Service Supervisor with Premier Select Sires. Thank you very much for joining us today, Brian.
Glad to be here, Lisa. Thank you.
If you could please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your role with Premier.
Well, I've been with the AI industry for over 25 years now. I've worked with the Select branch for over 20 years. I started as a technician, and I currently am a technician supervisor, a reproductive service specialist supervisor. And I work with those technicians and their herds and their accounts to help make sure that they're going the correct direction that they want their dairy to go, where they're trying to go with their dairy, and what are the best approaches that we can help them achieve the genetic and the reproductive balance that they need.
Thanks, Brian. We're really looking forward to what you have to say today. And as we move through this series of Bovine Banter, I want to remind you that we are focusing on reproductive management. And this episode will cover a little bit about managing data and making decisions at the farm level. So let's go ahead and get started with our discussion. So Brian, can you tell us, how has management of reproductive data on farms really changed the last few years?
We have access to data that is so fast paced now that we have access to things within weeks, sometimes days. The waiting for the vet to come in and doing a monthly herd check and waiting for that information and putting it in. I mean, we're going through things with activity systems where we're constantly seeing cows, how their rumen's working, how their activity is. We can see things almost live. So much is right current today in real time. With our robots and everything, we have milk weights and that instantly anymore. As soon as the computer can load the data and the information into it, we have access to it.
So given all that great information that you have, what are some common reproductive management strategies that can contribute positively to profitability?
Some of the first ones that jump out is our technology, our cow manager system, and the other activity systems that, really help us focus on when the proper time for that cow to inseminate her, when to get started, how strong her heat is, how well her body's working. It's showing us so much of what she's done in the first 60 days, 80 days of her lactation, that we can make sounder decisions on when to artificially breed our cattle. I mean, we've seen a lot of our herds start to extend their voluntary waiting period, and we're out there in that 75 to 95 day range, where before we were trying to breed cows really early, and we struggled with them, and we just didn't know when the ideal time was, when the cow's health was at its optimum. And, now that we've really been able to track that data and the information and see it happening, we can wait longer without being concerned of when we're going to get her pregnant. She'll get back on track and she'll do her thing, and we can watch that and catch her when it's proper timing.
Sounds great. So we've seen a lot of different types of technologies, a lot of different breeding strategies that you just talked about a bit, including some beef on dairy crosses. So if you had to think about the factors that really have the greatest impact on a successful reproductive program, what would those be?
I think, we overlooked when the beef on dairy come in, and we started to see the change in our pen and how many animals we're holding, or how many we're overstocking or not overstocking. I think, that was one of the key things with that strategy that seemed to be a good influence, that we had smaller groups, animals were taken better care of from the very beginning, better day one calf care, where we can fulfill that animal's genetic potential, because we're not overcrowding, we're not holding her back, we're giving her everything that she should, because just the mere fact of a couple of animals extra in a pen, we don't realize how often that overstocking really has to do with things. you know, and not just with the overstocking. Some of the things that really help is our heifer calculators. We're looking at how many animals do we really need to keep there. So hand in hand, the beef on dairy and the heifer calculators, and just the use of the sex semen on our top genetics. Those have all caused us to look at using better bulls, using better genetics, focusing on bulls that have better SCR, service conception rates, and daughter pregnancy rates. We have that data that's there at our fingertips that we can look at so many things and put it into play with, the animals that we are breeding are more fertile. We're able to have better heats on them and at more accurate heats. The pre-sink, off-sink is still huge in most of our dairies. And I think just getting those cows started, in the dry cow period, before we even get to the pre-sink, off-sink situation, so much of that happens in the dry cow pen. We need to get those cows dried off early, get them the proper days in the resting pens for dry cows, and get them ramped up that when they drop that calf, they're ready to go to work and they're ready to settle back into their routine.
Lots of great information to think about. Thank you. So when you're evaluating, you have a lot of experience in evaluating different farms and different programs, Brian. When you're evaluating a dairy's reproductive management programs, what data do you find most useful to look at?
I really like to look at our local benchmarks. I like to compare our herds to similar size herds in similar regions. You got to compare apples to apples. And I think that's a big part, is knowing what the surrounding area. I mean, our feeds are very similar in certain areas. We're going through the same toxin challenges. Knowing what's going on around us and using those local benchmarks help us, give us points to achieve towards and work towards, to let us know, are we doing average, are we doing above average? Because if we don't have some type of goal or something to compare us to, we really don't have anything to shoot for and work at. So that's a big part of it.
Those benchmarks certainly are important. So if you had your top 3 tips that you could share with farmers to help them enhance their reproductive management, what would those top 3 things be?
Stay focused on all the technology that we have at our fingertips. It's constantly getting better. It's just like our phones or computers. Every year we have so much more available to us that it's right there, and that's instant information. I think a big part of it is we have to have our strategy or our plan for the future. We can't just think about what we're trying to get through in the next 6 months. We got to have the next 5 years kind of, if we're really wanting to survive and excel, we have to have that long-term approach and strategy. And we have to talk with people that have experience in some of those things, staying connected to people that are resources and people that have done it, use the knowledge that's with us there. So just the assets that are behind us, and just continually look at the data and the information that's in front of us that we can get from testing, from the robots, whatever we have, whatever information we have, let's always be studying it.
Lots of great information and lots of great things for our producers to think about. Brian, do you have a takeaway message that you would like to share with our listeners?
Probably what I would like to say is monitor, measure, and manage. Use your 3 M's there. We can monitor everything now. We know what's going on in every pen, with cameras, with activity systems, with our computers. Monitor, measure, and manage.
Well, we can certainly remember those 3 M's, and that's a great way to finish this up, Brian. Thank you very much for talking with us today, and thank you to all of our listeners. Don't forget to tune in next Tuesday, March 19th, when Ginger Fenton completes this series for us on reproductive management. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.